Okay, we finally get to do some real Earth science. So these are actually our first real Earth science notes for the 2015-2016 school year. And we're starting with a view of the Earth. So we're going to look at the Earth as a whole, kind of a big picture view of the Earth. The Earth is not only a sphere because it's circular, but it's also made of separate spheres as a whole, kind of like a pizza. There's a whole pizza, but there's also individual parts or individual pieces. Those are also called spheres. So a sphere, yes, the Earth as a whole is a circle. It's a round object. It is considered a sphere, but also there are parts of the Earth or portions of the Earth which are also called spheres. So a sphere is a portion of the Earth, just like these pieces of pizza. Earth has 4 of these major spheres. So again, the Earth as a whole is a big round sphere, but it's also made of 4 separate spheres within the Earth. First one is the hydrosphere. Take the word hydro, it means water. The word sphere means circle, so add the two together. It's the circular part or the portion of the Earth that is from water. So hydrosphere is parts of the Earth that is water. The next portion, atmosphere, these are all the clouds, all the gases, the air we breathe, our breath. Third portion, or the third part of the Earth, is the geosphere. This is all the rocks on Earth. Geo meaning rock, sphere meaning portion. Add the two together, geosphere means rock portion of the Earth. And the final sphere is the biosphere. Take the word bio, that means life. Take the word sphere, that means portion, so put them together. Biosphere means the living or life portion of the Earth. So the Earth is made of 4 major spheres: the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the geosphere, and finally the biosphere. First, let's talk about the hydrosphere. Like I mentioned before, hydro means water, sphere means portion. You put those two words together and you get the one word that is hydrosphere, because hydrosphere is all of the water on Earth. So anything that is water. This includes the oceans, water that's in the ground or called groundwater, streams, lakes, glaciers, rivers, the spit in your mouth, anything that has water in it is considered part of the hydrosphere. In fact, the oceans make up 97% of the water on Earth. So they make up 97% of the hydrosphere. Oceans are by far the biggest entity on Earth. So since they're so large, they take up 97% of the water on Earth. So that means 97% of the water on Earth in the hydrosphere is actually salt water. So it's undrinkable for humans and can be unsafe for us in large amounts. The other 3% comes from groundwater, streams, lakes, and glaciers. That is fresh water. That's the stuff we can drink. That's safe for us to take into our bodies, but it's only 3% of the water. So if we have situations where we pollute our fresh water, or we use too much, such as the droughts that are going on in California right now, only 3% of the water on Earth is fresh water, whereas 97% is salt water, which is not drinkable by humans. If you notice, I also put glaciers in there. In the bottom picture here, on the bottom video, that is a glacier. That is frozen water that's up on the side of a mountain. Even though the water is frozen, it's still considered water and part of the hydrosphere. So it is fresh water, it is frozen, but it is part of the hydrosphere because it's water, and even though it's solid, it is still part of the hydrosphere. The next sphere is the atmosphere. As I had mentioned before, you take the word atmo, which means gas, the last word, which is sphere, you put them together, and it's the gas portion of the Earth, because sphere means portion, so atmos and sphere means the gas portion of the Earth. So it's all of the gases found on Earth. That could be anything from the clouds to the air we breathe in, the air we breathe out, someone's breath, maybe an odor or a smell. All those things are gases. All those things are part of the atmosphere. The good thing about the atmosphere is it provides the air we breathe. Without an atmosphere, there is no life, because you have to have oxygen, you have to have some type of elemental background for us to breathe, or living organisms to breathe. So if you don't have an atmosphere on a planet, you don't have any life. So Earth is very unique because we have an atmosphere here. It's perfect, and it provides the air we breathe, but also the air that animals and plants breathe as well. It also protects us from the sun's heat and radiation. If you look at the video down here at the bottom, you'll see that that's a close-up of the sun. And you can't normally see this with your naked eye, but with the telescope we can see the sun actually has a lot of solar radiation that comes off the body. And not only is it very hot, but it also has radiation which can burn us, as you probably have had a sunburn before. That's from the sun's radiation. But it can also be damaging to our organs and things like that. But the atmosphere protects us from this radiation. So not only is the sun's heat not as hot as it normally is, but also the radiation or the radioactive waves that come from the sun are kind of filtered by the atmosphere, and it helps to protect us. If we didn't have an atmosphere, we would have no life here on this planet. Some planets, such as the planet Mercury, which is near the sun, don't have an atmosphere because they've been burned away. The atmosphere has been burned away, and therefore the planet Mercury does not have any life, because with no atmosphere, there is no life. So the atmosphere is all the gases found on Earth. Third type of sphere we're going to discuss this class is the geosphere. As I mentioned before, if you break geo and sphere into two words separate, geo means rock and sphere means portion of the Earth, so geosphere means the rock portion of the Earth. It's all of the land, all of the rock found on Earth. Now that could be solid rock, such as on a mountain, or maybe some gravel you could find near your house, or maybe on a street. Or it could be liquid rock, such as in volcanoes, as you can see in the video here on top. These are volcanoes. That's liquid rock, and even though it's in liquid form, it's still part of the geosphere. So this includes any part of the rocky part of the Earth. This is the crust and the mantle and the core. You probably learned about these things maybe back in your middle school Earth science class, but anything that's rock, including the crust, mantle, and core, is considered the geosphere. The next sphere that makes up the Earth is the biosphere. And the biosphere, take that word, break it into two. Bio means life. Sphere means portion of the Earth, so those two together mean the life portion of the Earth. That's anything living. Anything living on Earth, from the very smallest microorganisms to the very largest animals in the ocean. It's anything that's living, and that can include plants and animals. So as you can see in the video below, it's anything that's living. So it could be that jellyfish right there, or those trees and plants, or that owl right there, or that bird. But anything that's living on Earth is considered part of the biosphere. It includes all plants and all animals. Biosphere, the living portion of the Earth. This is probably just a quick review of the layers of the Earth. There are three major layers of the Earth that we'll study in this class. The first one being the crust. Think of the shell of an egg. The crust is the thinnest layer of the Earth, or it's the part of the egg which is the shell. As you can see from the video below, it's a very thin layer. As you kind of peel it back, it's kind of like peeling an orange or maybe peeling an apple. It's a very thin layer. It's the outermost layer on the Earth, but what's unique about the crust is it's very thin below the oceans, and it's very thick below the mountains. As you know, oceans, there's a depth. You have to go down deep in the bottom of the ocean, so you're closer to the inside of the Earth. Therefore, it's very thin at the oceans. The thickest part of the Earth is as you go higher into the atmosphere, and those are the mountains. So the thinnest part is below oceans. The thickest part is below the mountains. That is the crust. That's the first layer, the thinnest layer on Earth. Next layer is called the mantle. If you were to think of an egg, the mantle would be the white part of the egg. It's not the shell, it's the next layer down. It's the thickest part, it's called the mantle. In this video, the mantle is the layers below the crust. The crust is here, this goldish light color. And then below that, this red, orange, and into the yellow is the thickest part, and that is the mantle. And it's made of two parts. One part is called the upper mantle, and the other part is called the lower mantle. The upper mantle is closer to the surface. That's the orangish parts here in the animation. The lower mantle is the parts near the core, so that's more of your orangish, yellow parts right here. So the mantle is the thickest part of the Earth. It has two parts, which are called the upper and lower mantle. Final layer of the Earth that we'll discuss in this class is the core of the Earth. If you think about that egg once again, the core of the Earth would not be the shell, it wouldn't be the white part, it'd actually be the middle or the yellow or the yolk part. It's the center part of the Earth. It's deep into the earth. Matter of fact, we've never been to the core, probably never will be. We don't have the technology to get there. It's really deep in the earth. It's the middle part of the earth, or the center. And it is also made of two parts, the outer core, which is liquid, and the inner core, which is solid. As you go deeper down into the earth, the pressure from all the weight of the rock and the weight of the earth as a whole causes the particles to crush together. So as you go deeper and deeper, the particles are packed closer together and they're tighter together and they turn solid. So the inner core, or in this animation, the part that's right in the middle, this bright part, is actually a solid metal. The outer part, which is the less bright yellow portions, is called the outer core and it's liquid. So the inner core is solid, the outer core is liquid. Plate tectonics is a theory that we will use in earth science. And it's based on how the continents over time have moved. As you can see in this animation below, the continents over time have drifted apart. This continental drift is called plate tectonics. Several million years ago, there was a continent. Scientists believe, we weren't around then, so we don't know for sure, but scientists believe there was one continent. That was called Pangaea. And as the continents moved over time, they spread apart and it led to what is today called the continents of the earth, but at one time was this center mass kind of in the middle, which was once called Pangaea. So plate tectonics, this movement of continents slowly, has two forces involved in the movement. First one is a constructive force, and the second one is a destructive force. So plate tectonics is basically how the continents have moved over time, and it includes two forces, constructive and destructive. First force we mentioned is the constructive force. Just like if you were to work in construction, you are building things up or creating new things, because a constructive force is when land is built up. In this video, these are animations of Hawaiian volcanoes, which are dumping new lava into the ocean. As that lava cools, it solidifies and creates new land. That is a constructive force. So examples of constructive forces or land being built up would be mountains that are built. As you can see, there are mountains built here in this video. And volcanoes, which erupt lava and eventually the lava cools and new land is created. Those are called constructive forces because, just like I had mentioned before, if you work in construction, you're building something new. You're creating maybe a new building, but in this case it's actually the earth creating Mother Nature's building, which is land, new land. Final force is the destructive forces, or are the destructive forces. And this is when land is broken down. As you can see from this video below, the ocean here is the destructive force because as it goes in and out, the ocean breaks these rocks down. This is a time-lapse photography. As you can see, as the ocean comes in, it breaks down the rocks and turns them into sand or smaller rocks. This is called a destructive force because it's destroying the rocks or breaking them down. So as land is built up with constructive forces, it is also broken down with destructive forces. And examples of destructive forces would be weathering. That's when the weather or maybe wind, rain, the heat breaks down a rock or breaks down land. Or in this case where the ocean is actually breaking down the rocks, water is breaking down the rocks, it's called erosion. So constructive forces, you're building things up. Destructive forces, you are breaking them down. And that's it for the first set of notes for Earth Science. Show me these notes so you can get your credit and save them so you can use them on future assignments.